Okay, so in this video I want to talk about drawing and painting ellipses, and it will just involve very simple observable things that will help you in correcting your drawing of an ellipse as well as better understanding how to paint an ellipse. And so I'll demonstrate with a little bowl as an example, and then I'll talk about an ellipse in a painting as an example. Okay, so just to start, I'll talk about some things just to help you in one way that helps me in correcting the drawing of an ellipse, and just things to be conscious of. And so when you're looking at your bowl or whatever it is, so we'll say that we're looking at it directly on, and so that we'll say that this is a perfect circle. Now if you turn it in any direction, so if you tilt it back, then of course this diameter has to become shorter. The width remains the same. So if you turn an ellipse in any direction, in that direction you turn it in, that distance must become shorter. Okay, so one thing I like to do that helps me in my drawing is just, I like to imagine, so like a plumb line is being dropped just alongside the edge, and so that it just touches that widest point of the ellipse. Okay, so if you're conscious of that, then you know that same widest point must exist over here, and that they must be on that same path, you see. So at any 2 points, of course, in a circle, they have to be symmetrical. So if you find those 2 points, and so like in the height, so like laterally just across the top, and if you're conscious of that tallest point, then you know it must exist, the lowest point must exist down here, and that of course that they must be on that same path. And so it's one thing that helps me in correcting a drawing. And so now I want to talk about painting an ellipse, and really this will apply to anything you're painting, but a bowl is a good example to talk about. Okay, and so in finding a highlight on an ellipse or anything you're painting, so the highlight will always fall on the corner. So relative to the direction of the light, the highlight falls on that nearest corner, and where the plane changes. Okay, so like in a convexity, you could do it in just any direction, so like we say it's coming from top down. And the light has to reflect off of that nearest corner relative to the direction of the light. Okay, and so if you flip, so now we have a concavity, you see? And it's the same thing, it's just inverted. So the highlight always has to reflect on that corner. So we'll say the light's coming from the direction of the camera. Then we know the highlight must fall on that corner. And so it's always on where the plane changes is where the highlight will fall. And so in painting, you have to be conscious of these things rather than just copying. And so now I'll go to a painting as an example. Okay, so to continue, so your highlight will always fall on that nearest corner where the plane changes relative to the direction of the light. So the bowl or whatever you're painting could have, you know, chipped edges or whatever. It's just not very clear where that highlight is. If you're conscious of where your direction of your light, then logically you can find where the highlight must fall. And so as well, it must exist on this other side here, and that they exist in the same path of the light. And so you have to be conscious of the consistency in your painting, so like the direction of light in your painting, and not just copying, because you could be looking at whatever it is, maybe the bowl's misshapen or it's just not clear where the highlight is. But if you're conscious of these things, then you can create a much greater feeling of form and dimension in your painting. And so I hope this has been helpful to you guys.